Alright, my friends. In video 2 here, you should be definitely working on your second job. And I want to reiterate this again because when we talk about um, building your bank account up, finance and wealth, it has to be attacked from multiple angles. I once heard a very good quote, and that was, "You'll never work your way to riches." And so And I'm sure that there are exceptions to that rule, if you could call it that. But the idea is you're never going to follow the average path and really achieve an unaverage life. So it's about multiple things. It's about maximizing what you do for money, okay? It's about maximizing how long you have to do it for. And a simple idea of that is working for $10 an hour, 8 hours a day is pretty tricky and pretty hard um, to do that. I don't really recommend that. I understand if you have to do that, we all have to start somewhere, but begin to make a plan in other ways. Um, and in maximizing in different angles, let's go into this, which is think about for a minute who you can live with for free, to put it bluntly. I understand some people may chuckle at that, but um, this is about setting up cushion room for yourself to live a life that you really envision, and that life being, at least in this academy, music. So, and understand, I don't mean mooch off of people. I mean make a plan. This isn't see how long you can get one over on someone. It's more so find someone who understands your vision and can give you 6 months to a year, or maybe even 2 to 3 years to get on your feet. But in that time, you better not get lazy. You have to check yourself daily about this. And so a lot of people don't really understand how, with an average life, average income, how to maximize this and still hang on to your dreams of making music. And to put it bluntly, we already went over getting a second job that really maximizes your earnings versus the time you actually have to be present at that job. You should be working towards that and taking care of that. So far, I presented to you in this video, um, not taking the money that you'll earn from the first video and dumping it into high rent. That is, do you have a sister, a brother, mom and dad, a grandma, somebody that you can live with for free or next to free, that's better than paying what most people do, an average rent price. If it's the same as rent, then obviously rethink what you're doing. Um, if you can get an apartment for $1,000 a month, or you can live in a house that has relatives that are distracting, or this or that, something that's not healthy for you, for 1,000, then obviously you may want to begin to either think about going for the apartment where at least you'll live alone and have some peace and quiet, or leaning on somebody else that might be open to the idea. So, and this is how things develop, where, like, well, I have an aunt that lives on the outer banks of the Carolinas, and I went down there, fell in love with the beach. I live, for $200 a month, I live with her, so long as I do the laundry and take care of some chores, and I'm really starting to get on my feet. So think about that. Aside from thinking about a job where you can earn high, you don't necessarily need advanced education where you'll get into debt, and then a living situation where you're not taking that money and dumping it directly into paying for a living situation, or completely dumping all of it into a living situation. The third thing I want you to think about is, as time rolls on, by maximizing the expense that you have for living, by maximizing the job that you have, or the second or third job that you have, you can then begin to think about getting rid of renting altogether. Um, and I think probably the quickest thing that I could say about that is think about getting out of the city, or looking for a fantastic deal in the city. sometimes you just can't have your cake and eat it too. And right now, where I'm at is a perfect example of that. I live in a very, very small college lakeside town in western Pennsylvania. Um, but the cool thing about where I live is, even though it's just a blip on the map, it's about 90 minutes from three mid-level major cities: Pittsburgh, Cleveland, and Buffalo. So I do not have rent and I do not have a mortgage. Now, where I live is definitely what would be considered a cottage. But and for those of you who don't understand what I'm saying by that, I just mean it lacks square footage. It is not a very big house whatsoever. It can feel cramped at times, but I don't even know when the first is every month. I don't have a landlord. I don't have someone knocking on my door, and I certainly do not have a monthly withdrawal from my account paying for housing. Um, strive for that. Here's why. The cushion that has given me to work on my dreams is unbelievably valuable. It's invaluable. Yeah, a price cannot be put on it. Um, because it lacks square footage, because it's not a dream home, because there's only one bathroom and that can be an issue at times, it didn't cost an arm and a leg. As a result, it got paid off quickly, in cash. No banks were involved, and there is no landlord, obviously, and I don't answer to anybody. So even if everything in life went wrong, at the very least, I have my small little home in Pennsylvania where I could probably live out the rest of my days. If I really wanted to do nothing, I could work locally at Walmart or a local cafe and easily make ends meet because I don't owe anybody anything. As long as I pay for utilities, for my own comfort, hygiene, and health, and as long as I pay my yearly property taxes, which are, you can't escape those really, um, I'm good. So basically, as long as I earn about $5,000 a year at the very least, I could scrounge by. Now, obviously, that's an extreme example. I don't suggest only, scrounging by. I'm just painting the picture of the freedom that you can have if you play your cards right and attack your financial health in multiple ways. Earn as much as you can without getting into debt if you can. Simplify your living situation, and as you simplify your living situation, you should see the fruit growing from earning as much as you can while getting into as little as debt for that as you can. Um, you should see that begin to build in your bank account so that you're in a position to buy something. Now, you don't necessarily have to buy a house, and here's where another golden nugget of this video for you to pay attention to is you can buy a mobile home. You can buy a plot of land, um, and check in obviously to your local laws and local ordinances, but instead of moving into a mobile home park where you have monthly lot fees, buy a small chunk of land out in the country, buy a small mobile home, get that land set up for electric and plumbing, set that mobile home on that land, and you basically just did what I did with my cottage. The difference is I can't move my cottage, but you can move your mobile home, even though you probably won't. Um, these are really cost-effective ideas, guys, and I hope you're paying deeply attention to them because this is how you can live your dream as an independent musician without blowing out your your dreams and your bank account trying to keep up with the Joneses living the American dream. This is the new American dream. Even cheaper than that, you can think about getting a used RV. Maybe if you can't live inside the house of your aunt or your grandma or whoever, you can get an RV and put it in her driveway. Maybe she doesn't want to be cramped with you in the house, but if she could lend part of her driveway to your small-ish RV, that's a great way to set yourself up. I mean, you can buy kind of an RV that isn't great but is okay enough for $2,000, $3,000, $4,000, $5,000. If you have more money than that, all the better. But that's a great way of not needing to buy land for a mobile home. You can buy an RV for roughly about $5,000 that's worthy enough to sit in a driveway. It's more than enough room for you. And with the techniques that I've taught you in the production course about mixing and mastering with headphones to get professional quality results, you really don't need a room anymore that's soundproofed with expensive monitors. You just don't. Um, I understand that there's a romantic idea of that, and I did that for a while, and it is fun to have that, but you don't need that. So an RV should be more than enough studio for your laptop and your set of headphones. Um, Arguably even cheaper than that, depending on how you go about it. You could buy basically like a band touring van. So kind of like, a 16 passenger van, if you will. Gut it, and from there, your bank account and imagination can run wild. You could throw a mattress in it with a microwave and be done. You could make it beautiful with a small stove or hot plate, a sink, perhaps an outdoor shower that hangs over your door, a mattress, and a solar panel to power all of that. I met a girl last year while working a sales job who came up to me. We were talking about business, hit it off, and she showed me her car. Um, she was like 20. Her parents were very supportive, helped her take her small SUV, attach a solar panel to it. The trunk was basically her mattress, and she had small ways of being able to make things like ramen noodles, um, and ways of heating up water and stuff. And she was just traveling across the country like that. She wasn't a filthy hippie. She was just a girl that wanted to travel and found a way to use current technology to innovate a car into a small moving home. And these are things to think about, guys, because it's very easy for a common person to get into debt and get lost in the shuffle, let alone what is traditionally a hard industry to make it in, creative industry, music. So think about these things, guys, and set yourself up for success. Um, but at the very least, even if you're not sure that you want to buy a small home, or a van or an RV, or if you're not sure what you want to do about buying a plot of land to put a mobile home on, at the very least, understand this. Maximize what you make at a second job, third job. Minimize what you spend on rent. And those two combined should at least beef up your bank account. From there, what you want to do with your money, I don't recommend going off course from this course, but it's up to you. But at the very least, that sets you up to have more money in your bank account than someone who's working two jobs to pay high rent in New York, LA, or Miami. You have to think in multiple angles. You can't just earn a lot, but then spend a lot on rent. You want to earn a lot. You want to spend very little or as much as you can on your living situation. And from there, make your moves, whether it be buying a small house, buying an RV, taking your car and decking it out with solar panels, or a van that is also decked out with solar panels. I understand that maybe some of this seems extreme, but what you'll understand is that if you can do that for like 10 years, give or take, and continue on with that, your music's either going to hit and your life can change drastically as a result because you're doing what you love, you're making money with it, and then can upgrade to what you really want to do. If you even need to upgrade, you may find that that right there is perfect for you. But we'll talk more about how that can put you in a position to, when you're ready to upgrade, you can rent what you have. So if you're like me and you have a small lakeside cottage that was way below market value, I got lucky which I guess we didn't really talk about that, but essentially, if you can look for deals on houses, you can really find stuff like, for example, my cottage was acquired because the family that owned it is a local family that has a ton of money, and believe it or not, to them, they listed it for like 30 or 40,000 under market value. They didn't care about losing that 30 or 40,000 because to them this cottage was a pain in their side. The insane thing about it is it's not like this cottage was acquired and it needed a roof and had a water main break in it and was flooded. It was basically move-in ready if you didn't mind having dated flooring and dated cabinets. So if you can stand to move into a place that's dated, and like me found a great deal from a very rich family that, I mean, it must be nice, right, to not care about losing 30 or $40,000 on a deal. um, there you go. But if you don't, for me, the planets just align. You know, um, if you don't want to wait for a deal, because waiting can be dangerous, um, make an active plan. But like for me, so when I'm ready to upgrade, I can rent what I'm currently living in, and that's a source of income. What you can also do, if you're single and you don't mind this is a really great way to pay back. If you Whether you have a mobile home with multiple bedrooms or a cottage with multiple bedrooms, or think outside of the box, maybe even an RV if the vibe is right. Let's say that somewhere in there you have expenses, whether it be paying grandma to use the driveway where your RV sits, or you did, unfortunately, unlike me, had to take out a loan, but it was a small loan and you're working on paying that back. What you can do is get a roommate and charge that roommate rent. Take their rent and dump it into either paying whoever you owe what you owe, whether it be the banks paying back your loan, or whoops, or paying grandma what you owe her to rent her driveway space for your RV, your van, or whatever. Um, Another idea is sheds. Sheds nowadays, if you have, let's say you have a grandma or an aunt with some land, if they don't mind putting a $2,000 or $3,000 shed, I mean, a $2,000 or $3,000 shed is basically a small home. If you can run electric out to that shed and just come and go into the house for bathroom uses, um, you might be able to do something like that. And then also, if you can get somebody that's a roommate to help pay for that, or the roommate pays rent to you and you take the money and give it to the aunt or the grandma that's allowing you to do this, you are no longer paying anything. Same thing with a house. If you buy a small house and let's say you had to take out a loan for $10,000 or $20,000, nothing too extreme, um, you could get a roommate and that roommate pays rent, but that rent is actually the balance that you owe monthly on that loan. So you're no longer paying the loan back. Your roommate that you rent a bedroom to pays for that. They don't need to know that, but that's what's going on. And then as you pay that off, if you can stand to continue to have a roommate and charge them rent for their bedroom, you're now making a couple $100 every single month on something that's completely paid off. And that allows you to maybe not work as much, but don't get lazy. Maybe you should continue to work as much while they pay rent, beef up your bank account, and then you realize, wow, my dream just got a whole lot easier to work on because now everything is paid off and I didn't even really pay for it. I took the initial jump to do it, but I got a roommate shortly after and they paid for my mortgage. So, or my loan. So, think about that. And a loan doesn't always have to be through a bank, guys. If you ever fairly well-to-do grandma, borrow $5,000 or $10,000 and then pay it back. But you don't pay it back. You get a roommate to pay rent, and you take that money, the rent money, and give it to grandma as payback. So there's ways of sort of at times inserting a middleman or woman to help you pay off that which you borrowed. And there's also ways to live and work on your dream without doing what most people do, which is buy a house at $100,000 plus and wondering how they're going to make ends meet. Don't do that. Look for houses that are $40,000 or less, that maybe need windows, or doors, or some kind of thing that you can fix yourself. I'm not handy at all. I wouldn't necessarily attempt to get on a roof, but handy work that usually goes into a house actually is not that hard. I've come to find that. It's just a matter of getting on YouTube and doing it, or getting a buddy who knows how to do it to help you. Little things like a leak from a bathtub that needs recaulked isn't a big deal. You buy a caulking gun for $7, you buy a tube of caulk for $10, and just as you spread ketchup or mayo onto a sandwich, I know that sounds funny, but if you have no experience, everybody's at least spread ketchup or mayo on a sandwich. Same basic principle with a caulking gun. Go along the seam, let the caulk come out, seal up that leak, and you're done. I thought it was the end of the world when I had to replace a wax ring around a toilet, and then I looked it up and realized that, wow, within an hour I learned something new, the job was done, and it didn't take a brain surgeon to do it. You just need to have the guts to do it. Same thing with a lot of stuff, cleaning gutters. And these are the kind of things too, guys, that as you acquire these skills, you can then be a local handyman in your area to your local neighborhood. Somebody doesn't want to clean their gutters and you don't mind heights. It's really not hard to take pine needles or leaves, put them in your hand, reach into a gutter that's 2 inches deep, pick up the leaves and throw them out of the gutter. I mean, that's a business right there. So these are ways of earning money, and you'll see how it all kind of dominoes and it all kind of unfolds. Same thing with painting. When I painted this cottage, I thought that it was going to be like this hard thing and it has to be perfect, and there's a lot that goes into it. There's a lot that goes into it, but none of it's that hard. It's not hard to go to Walmart and buy a scraper, scrape your house, buy a $20 sanding tool, sand it, and then buy paint and paint it. It is not hard. I had to paint my deck on this house as well, or I should call it my front porch actually. I was like, man, I don't know how to sand wood. I don't know how to paint wood. It's not that hard. You run an extension cord, you plug a sander in, and you go at it for an hour or two. You sand your porch, and then you paint it. It's really not that hard. And I'm not somebody that grew up learning how to do that stuff. I just looked it up, learned how, did it myself, and guess what? The world did not end and no catastrophe ensued. But I also do things that aren't that big of a deal. Painting a house is not life or death. Putting a roof on a house, that's a little more serious. You don't want to fall off the roof, number one. And number two, a roof has to be good. It has to be strong. It cannot have leaks, otherwise it's going to destroy the rest of your house. So take on tasks that aren't that big of a deal. Sanding, painting, cleaning gutters, small things like that. Maybe even putting flooring in, basic plumbing things, basic keyword there, plumbing things like replacing the wax ring on the bottom of your toilet, tightening up a leaky faucet, things like that are not a big deal and should not be feared. Putting a washer and dryer in is not a big deal. So things like this can help you save money, can teach you a new skill. You can flip those skills into ways of making money and get yourself in a better living situation quickly. And by quickly, in housing terms, I mean a year or two. So think about that, and we'll move on to the next video, guys.